Hey everybody, welcome to the 20-Minute Bible Study. I am Vince Miller. Today's topic is disciplining with wisdom. You know, understanding how to discipline a child requires a lot of wisdom, sometimes more than you'll ever feel like you'll possess in a lifetime. You know, if you're too harsh, you could just end up intimidating your children emotionally and thus hijacking their ability to learn through the discipline. But on the other hand, if you're too lenient, you may risk removing the guardrails that provide boundaries and protection for your children in the present and even down the road. You know, knowing how to do this well is tricky to say the least, but here are 5 principles to follow. Number 1, set boundaries. You know, it's important to have clear and agreed upon limits with your children. Number 2, match the discipline with the infraction. Nothing is more unfair to children than when we over punish. 3, make punishment age and child appropriate. Each child is going to require a different type of punishment. 4, deliver punishment when you are calm. This is just wise on your part. Adding anger to good punishment will still make it bad discipline. And 5, keep the goal in mind. Remember, the purpose behind the punishment and the discipline is to teach, not simply inflict pain, but to guide them toward making better future decisions. So when we come back, we'll be joined by a special guest and a good friend who will help us to discover how we can appropriately love and discipline our children.
Get your day started right. Sign up for the Men's Daily Devotional at mensdevo.org. That's mensdevo.org. They're short, sweet, and to the point. Read them and share them with the men you know. And get into God's Word daily.
Well, hey guys, welcome back. I'm joined today by a special guest, Mark Triplett. Thanks for being with us, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. This is fun.
You're a guy that does some speaking as well, just like I do, right? You've been doing some of that?
Yeah, I enjoy that. I really enjoy it.
No, you're good at that, man. So we're glad to have you. A well-known author and speaker in the room. So, you know, today we're just talking about discipline, right? Mm-hmm. And you heard a little bit in the monologue that I think men and the challenge with disciplining our children is hard. It's difficult. It's hard to know when to push. It's hard to know when to pull back. It's hard to know when to bite our tongue, right?
Yes, yeah.
I'm assuming growing up in the home that you grew up in, you probably experienced moments where discipline was hard and even challenging for you as a kid. Maybe times when your parents pushed a little bit too far. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the 50s. And the 60s, and that's when children were to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And the quick answer was a backside off the head. Mm-hmm. And so the discipline that I grew up with was physically difficult, abusive, you could even say, to some degree. But it was common. That was the culture back then. Yeah. And so, but it was difficult. I also felt the loving hand of Christian parents who struggled with the same thing that we struggle with today, and the things you mentioned about how to pull back and how to.
So why do you think that? Why do you think that discipline has changed over years? Has that been good or has it been bad?
I think it's been good, very good, because we learn from our mistakes, and our culture seems to learn better by our mistakes. We're wiser, we're smarter, we have far more availability of information. Back in the day, when I was a kid, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to the library, use the Dewey Decimal System, pull the card, find a book, get a help. Today, you just type it into Google and you got your answer. So I think today we're far wiser, far more educated about a lot of issues. But regarding discipline, we get to understand more in detail and in depth from far more people than what I got when I was growing up as a child. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so coming back to just how you experienced discipline as a kid, you know, do you think the changes and the adaptations that we've made, it sounds like, are for the better?
I think so, yes. Because anytime we can learn from the mistakes of the past and we can implement those changes, I think we can better ourselves.
Yeah, sure. So basically what you're saying is that not only can we better ourselves as people, we can better the discipline. But the interesting thing about, I think, discipline is it's gotten so far complex. It's become almost impossible to know how to stray these lines. For example, I was listening to a podcast yesterday from a very well-known preacher, and he was talking about the fact that it's really good that we do as a family our Enneagrams, which is, one of these assessment tools, these ancient assessment tools that we use to understand each other. And he was talking about how he did this with his daughter and how it helped him to understand them so much more. And I'm like, now we got to start doing the Enneagram to just be careful about straying into any conversation. When you grew up with, you talked about it, the backhand, right, is the way we straighten people out. We've gone to a much more complex system. Have we made it discipline too complicated?
Well, I think there's the danger in that because it sets up a state of confusion. Which way is right, which way is wrong. And we know in our culture today, we call wrong right and right wrong all the time in our culture. And so that can set up a state of confusion. I want to do it the right way, but which is the right way?
Yeah, and I don't know if you ever felt like this in relationship with your spouse, but I know that in relationship with my wife, sometimes I feel cautious, let's say it that way, around disciplining a child because I don't know how they're going to respond. They don't know how I'm going to respond. Our boundaries may be a little bit different. And while we're trying to correct a situation that is basically third party to us, it creates first party issues. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you've been in those predicaments before.
Oh, many times. My children are grown up. One's in heaven, and now I got grandchildren that are in their 20s. And
Man, how old are you?
Well, according to one of the kids on my school bus, I'm almost dead.
That could not be farther from the truth, man. That could not be farther from the truth.
But I think that the danger in getting all this confusion thing is let me speak for myself.
Yeah.
I need to back away from the rush of making decisions based on all the information that's out there and go back to the pivotal point that I know is true, that love is patient, love is kind, and so on and so on and so on. So whether it's discipline or dinner, love never fails. And if that's the foundational basis of doing discipline or training or anything else, I think there's a greater degree of success.
Is that one of the things that you'd say you learn through the mistakes of being a parent?
Oh my
right?
Oh yeah.
It's just learn to love better and learn to love in the way that other people,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so we do some of this by trial and error, don't we?
Sure.
I kind of think that some people kind of shame themselves, especially fathers that have failed. We talked about this in our last episode, that we do make some mistakes, but disciplining with wisdom sounds like you're saying it's learning along the way and learning to be loving to other people, learning to act in the character of love.
Yes, and we have to remember that every moment of every day in our entire life, we play the dynamics of change. And so what worked yesterday for my daughter may not work under the same circumstances today for my daughter, and so on and so on.
Yeah, now let me ask you this. Now, because you're a practicing grandparent,
I know. Yeah.
You're a practicing grandparent. You get to practice on your own kids. Do you feel like you parent better as a grandparent because you kind of got to practice on your own children? Is that true or not?
Yes, I think that by and large is true, but there's a different relationship with grandchildren than there are with your immediate children.
So less discipline, is that what you're saying?
No. Okay. I don't think it's less discipline. I think it's abbreviated discipline.
Okay.
As a grandparent, my role is to nurture the children, give them a safe haven to be the grandpa that they can always come to and trust. They don't have to worry about the heaviness of discipline, because that's not my job.
Right.
Safety, yes. Correction, yes. But not the discipline where they've done something wrong. That goes back to the role of the parent, with the loving kindness of letting that child know, I need to let your mom and dad know this.
Okay, so that's super helpful for me. I am not a grandparent yet.
Okay.
Probably will be someday, but to kind of hear that perspective from you helps me to understand that, hey, wait a second, I am practicing as a parent. I'm learning, I'm growing better. I'm gonna make some mistakes, right?
Okay. Yeah.
At the same time, I'm gonna get this awesome opportunity to not necessarily do better, but be more strategic as a grandparent.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. It's not. I don't think it's a degree of better or worse.
Yeah.
But strategic
Yeah.
is when we back away from a situation and we strategically think about how am I going to respond to this. We're thinking at a higher level.
Yeah.
And we give time.
Yeah.
It's work to be able to respond properly.
Yeah. So let me ask you a daring and bold question on this. Was there ever a big mistake you felt like you made in disciplining your children? Ever like a big mistake? Like you wish you would never have done this one thing?
Oh, yeah.
You had some of those moments.
Yeah. Very, very early on in the rearing of our children, I responded to my son, who was probably 4 or 5 at the time, the very way that my parents responded to me, which was aggression and I hate the word abuse because it really wasn't that, but it was almost a mean-spirited,
verbally strong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More than
okay.
that. And I did that one time to him, and even to this day, I regret it in my soul. I just wish I never would have gone to that place that I knew was the wrong place to go, but I had a very bad day that day. There was a lot of tension, pressures, and I just wasn't able to cope with everything. And at that particular moment, I said enough was enough, and I lost my cool.
Yeah.
I didn't back away and allow my wife to take care of it. I went rushing in with bravado and machismo, and to this day, I regret that.
I think that is one of the great challenges that we face as men is dealing with our emotion, dealing with the heaviness of situations, understanding how to wield power, for example. And I like the fact that you use the word machismo, because I think that's a good example of what machismo looks like. It is not good.
No, never.
It is evil, manipulative, it's authoritative, bullying, you could call it that. But it is an overstepping of boundaries to kind of for the purpose of gaining control over some other situation or person or instance that you feel out of control.
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever apologize for that?
Oh my, yes.
Yeah. But it still lingers with you.
Yes, and I have forgiven myself because I know what the history was for me. I even forgiven my parents for having grown up in the 20s and 30s and 40s. That wasn't their fault.
Right.
So I'm okay with the history. But when I think about the love that I have for that child, and I think about those moments when I was less in control than I really thought I was, that's when I failed in successfully providing the discipline that was needed that would nurture love and trust.
Yeah.
All it did was invoke fear.
Yeah.
And
parenting out of fear invokes fear.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. This is really good, Mark. Thanks for the time today. And I want to wrap this up by stating back something that you've already said, actually, and that is that parenting is very simply a journey. Right? Yes. We don't have it figured out day one. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have to reconcile those. And the best thing that we can do is figure out how to parent out of love, bite our tongues at times, allow ourselves to have self-control by the power of the Holy Spirit, and then lean into the hard stuff. And we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to have to seek forgiveness and forgive ourselves. But this is an excellent dialogue on kind of understanding that discipline is something that we're thrust into. Right? It's not something we plan for. Like we know today's going to be a day of discipline. It's not going to, that's not how it happens. We're thrust into these moments. They often bring up powerful emotions. We've got to respond to them, and we don't always respond well. That's why sometimes we have kid 2, kid 3. And you're always practicing being a parent. You're always practicing. You're never just born into understanding what it means to be a parent. But the good thing is that we have a perfect Father.
Yes.
Who desperately loves us, who knows how to parent us exactly in the right way, and that's good news. So guys, thanks for being with us today. Great time with Mark Triplett here, and we hope that you'll continue to journey with us. But as you do, maybe today, consider how you parent and what that looks like, right? And get control of your emotions and discipline with greater wisdom. Guys, love you. We'll see you right back here next time on another edition of the 20-Minute Bible Study. Perfect, dude.